If you've ever stopped to think about how feedback is scaffolded, then this is the video for you. My name's Joga Conga and this is a video for teacherfeedback.org. So let's have a look to start with at what is scaffolding? What do we actually mean by this? For me, the metaphor of the bicycle is a very good one. So when you're learning to ride a bike, usually you've got someone at the back of you holding onto the saddle, giving you support. And then gradually over time, this support is reduced and perhaps you don't even notice the point at which the hand comes off the back of the saddle. So that to me is scaffolding, that interactive process where a novice is learning to do something supported by a more experienced person. Myhill and Duncan in this paper talk about the fact that the interface between interactive and transmissive learning is a very fine one, and that the problem can be that it's all too easy to plan these interactive episodes, but actually they become transmissive in delivery, that it's quite hard to give it to the trainees. In this paper, it's also suggested that abstract knowledge is difficult to scaffold. And what they say is that the effect of trying to scaffold this knowledge turns the interaction into a pseudo one, or bypassing. So essentially, rather than a joint negotiation, rather than this interactive thing between the mentor and the mentee, the trainer and the trainee, you miss, they talk about pupils' input because they're talking about schools, but I think it's the same thing. So let's look at an example. This is from my data, from my mentor project, and I think it's quite interesting. So here, the novice mentor starts by asking her mentee, let me now ask you as to what the one thing you'd like to do differently next time. Is there any? So I think this is a very reasonable way to start a mentoring conversation, and the mentor says, yes, there are. So then she's encouraged by the mentor to give some more information about this. All good. The issue that the mentee has here is about her body language. She says, I think I'll change the part I was flapping my hands around so much. Now, the first thing that the mentor says here is asks her whether it was because she was nervous or something. So I think this is good. I think she's engaging with what the mentor said. I think she's hedging her language a bit here or something. She's giving her space to give a different explanation if that's what she chooses. And the mentee says that she doesn't know. I really don't know what to do. She's clearly finding this an issue, but she's not sure what to do. Now, the next thing I think is interesting. So here the mentee says, well, I didn't notice that. And then to the other mentees in the group, she asks, did you notice that? I think that this is probably given with the best possible motives to say that really this wasn't such an important thing. But the mentee's reaction is, I clapped my hands like more than 10 times, I think. She's quite shocked, having seen the video of herself, that this was her body language. And the mentor now is quite surprised. Hi, Sally. And she says again to the other mentees, did you see that thing? And they all laugh and say, no, they didn't. It was fine. So I genuinely think that this was trying to be supportive, trying to be reassuring. But what the mentee says is, well, I did. Because I did a transcription. She's watched this video. She's carefully watched it because she had to transcribe it. And I noticed that. And at this point, the mentor says, anything else? So she's made a decision that this really isn't that important and she's moving the conversation on. But it looks to me as if it was important for that mentee. So that mentoring reaction to me looks a bit like this. We've got the person coming along, engaging a little bit and then moving on. This is, I think, what Bliss et al. Mean by pseudo-interactions or bypassings. Another way in which this can happen, I think, is where the mentor engages with something of what the mentor says, but they don't actually let them talk about it. They just do the talking, a bit like what we were talking about last time. So why do you think this happens? Why might this happen? I think sometimes it's just nerves. I think especially in my situation with novice mentors, sometimes they're just nervous and so they don't listen properly. Sometimes, of course, there's a need to tell or to give advice. People feel like they need to actually give their trainees or their mentees something. And I think this can be problematic sometimes. And then, of course, in a lot of situations, there'll be time constraints. You've got criteria to achieve, and you know that there are certain priorities which are more important, perhaps, than things that the trainees or the mentees are bringing up. So there might be very good reasons why this happens. But I think perhaps it's worth considering and worth noticing if you're doing this and whether there are good reasons for it or whether you're just not listening properly. I hope that that's been a little bit of a spark for some thought, and I'd really like to hear what you've got to say on the subject. Do you find yourself doing this? Do you think it's inevitable? Do you think actually it's necessary? What do you think? Please do give me a comment underneath. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.